once I started researching it and learning about regenerative agriculture and just seeing the benefits of it, of the soil health. You know, my wife thought I was crazy. That was not as big and as intimidating to her as cows. So we ended up with sheep. You come up here and everybody knows everybody, is kin to everybody. I was doing everything like Greg G. It just hurt my feelings when it didn't work out that way. I want to scale, but I also want it to be sustainable.
Okay. You're not just trying to scale to do it.
No.
You want to make sure it's successful.
I want to leave it. I want to leave it for my kids when they get ready. I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but this is definitely showing improvement. You know, and I may learn next week that there's a better way of doing something. I may change it all. This land has been in my wife's family for at least 2 generations.
Oh, wow.
We've actually just moved here almost 3 years ago.
So what brought you back here?
It was home. That was her mama's house. So
okay.
This was family land.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you come from a farming background?
No, I do not. This is my first run with it.
Okay. And did your wife have animals on pasture growing up, or?
They always had cows.
They always had cattle?
Always had cows.
Very cool. What made you start doing the rotational grazing stuff?
When my wife's mother got out of cows, she wanted something else that she could put some money in that was not as big and as intimidating to her as cows.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we ended up with sheep.
Ruminants, just a little
That's
smaller.
Right. That's right.
And here they are. What kind of sheep are those?
Those are hair sheep. The ram is a registered Katahdin. The rest are St. Croix, Royal White, and Katahdin.
What's so special about them?
They don't shed, for one.
So you don't have to shear them?
You don't have to shear them.
Okay.
And they make it, well, you see how their body condition, they make it pretty well on limited forage.
So do you have limited forage here?
In the wintertime we do. Summertime we can't hardly keep up with it, but in the wintertime it gets pretty lean.
Now, do you feed anything else, or are they grass-fed
They
completely?
were strictly grass-fed, but right now they're getting a little bit extra just to keep them over while the ryegrass gets established.
Okay, okay, very cool. And what do you do with them? What's your end product?
They are strictly for meat. That's their sole purpose.
And where do you sell that at?
Private seller.
Just like off the
Word
farm?
of mouth, yep, private seller.
So you don't do
yet. I hadn't had to take anything to the auction house.
Okay, do you do farmers markets?
Starting to.
What made you, I feel like people tend to do the opposite. They'll start at the farmer's market, and then once they get established with a customer base, then they'll just go off farm. But you seem to do off farm
we
first.
kind of did it backwards. We did off farm sales first, and I've got a friend of mine that actually runs a pumpkin patch where he had us showing some animals and all this spring or this fall, and got a lot of business off of that. He's about 30 minutes up the road, and he was wanting something to add to his, and it was kind of beneficial for both of us.
Okay. So how long have you been selling meat products then?
3 years.
So about the same you just
We started in the height of COVID-19. It was and you know, COVID was awful for a lot of people. It was actually beneficial for us on this because I had time to work on fences and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when everybody's at home not sure what to do, us farmers were
That's
like,
right.
well, we have tons of crap we need to do, and
Let me just get my
nobody's
list
telling us
out
to
and start
leave.
checking it off.
Exactly. Right now you've got them on like a little bit of a winter lot.
So it's all ryegrass that we've seeded, and actually where the pigs have been, it comes up better than anywhere else.
Really?
So the pigs have made the loop all through this. And they actually, the only spot that the pigs have rooted is this field right here, what we call the bull pasture, is because several years ago, that's where a lot of round bells were felled. And that's the only place to disturb. The rest of the time, they actually do a better job of cutting the fields than the sheep do. I grew up in a town outside of Mobile.
Okay.
And you knew your friends and family and folks you went to school with, but there were so many people you couldn't keep up with all of them. You come up here and everybody knows everybody, is kin to everybody. Hey, how you doing? All that kind of stuff. Everybody's willing to lend a helping hand on things if you need them to. And I work at a chemical plant that's about 40 miles that way. There's a lot of the guys that I know from the plant that I also know from this community as well. I've got several of my guys who just live a couple minutes down the road. And that kind of goes back to the marketing thing you were talking about. So I know them, they know me, they've come here, they've seen everything. Now they know I've got a product for sale, and just kind of start spreading from there.
It's interesting being out, like kind of, I don't know, do you call it out in the hall or out here? How do you
We're just out here.
Out here,
Yeah.
being out here and kind of away from a lot of the population.
That's right.
But also it's 2023, almost 2024. So there is technology there, but out here you don't really have to use it.
That's right. And you know, when I was growing up, my papa used to ask me how much land I wanted and all that kind of stuff, and I told him back then I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it without interfering with anybody else. And this place here makes it happen. It makes it possible. I mean, where we built our house site right there, that direction is called Pretty Hill, and it's one of the best views on the place.
Yeah.
Just looking across, you see all the way over the top of the chicken houses down to the pond, and it's just, I think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Just
And it's
enjoy
a great way.
view.
It's a great way to raise babies too.
Yeah.
A good way of life.
Yeah.
They get out here and they help me, and my oldest daughter, she can actually move the sheep better than I do.
Isn't it funny how fast kids pick
It
things
is.
up?
And she can get right on them. Now, she's a little leery of the pigs, which when they were piglets, they were all about them. But since they've gotten a little size on them, I kind of keep them back. They are extremely docile, but just in case they got in the way of their mouth or something.
So you said chicken houses.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
these were old chicken houses.
They are. They're used for storage now. They used to be active chicken houses. And up the road, up there, you can barely see the roof line through the woods over there. It was that was the hen house. These two were broiler houses.
Okay. Did your wife's family have those?
Her grandpa, back when Marshall Durbin was running everything.
Who's that?
It's just a big time chicken company.
Oh,
With chicken houses.
Okay, kind of like Tyson today.
Kind of, sort of.
Interesting. How now? Are her grandparents still around?
Her grandpa is.
His grandpa is. Your grandpa is. So how does he feel about taking things kind of out of the barn and onto pasture?
He is extremely happy to see the land still being used. He doesn't like anything to sit there and go to waste. And as long as you have animals producing on it, producing money, income, not to mention something to do,
Yeah.
then he's happy with it, seeing stuff used.
So he doesn't really care how it's used, because I feel like all too often, especially kind of in families, when you go from like a conventional mindset to a regenerative mindset, things feel a little tense at times.
That was a little different. We had that conversation. So when I started this 3 years ago, I broke up this one field into 7 pastures. And he kind of looked at me kind of funny when I was doing that. I wasn't real sure why I was doing it. Now, he had huge pastures that he would block off, about 4 pastures a piece at a time.
Now you said they had cattle though.
They did.
Okay.
And they were continuously grazed. So like that furthest field over there, that's pasture 3.
Okay.
The sheep have been off of that for about 3 weeks now. So, and you can see it's covered in green, so the ryegrass is making a good comeback. But the whole regenerative principle to him was a little off.
Okay.
So
Now, where did you learn the regenerative side?
books and YouTube.
Okay.
Books and
Anybody
YouTube.
specifically, or?
I love Joel Salatin and his stuff with Polyface Farm. I love Greg Judy. Some of his stuff did not apply to me.
How's that?
Well, and he says, you can take this and it's just a roadmap. It's not solid.
Right.
And you have to tailor it to you, and that's kind of what we did. When I was designing all this, me and my family, I put a lot of emphasis on what Greg Judy was doing, how he was doing it, the rotational part, the fences, like all that is 12.5 gauge, high tensile, everything's electrified. Got rid of barbed wire, got rid of all that kind of stuff. But the daily moves were presenting an issue, especially with raising 4 babies.
And you have an off-farm job.
That's right. So that was getting to be a bit much. So what I do now is they get somewhere between 3 and 5 days per pasture, and then I move them to the next one.
So you more are managing the lot, not necessarily just moving them every single day.
Right. And so I utilize everything I have. I use the sides of the roads in between the fences, like that's where the pigs are going to go tomorrow.
Okay.
I utilize everything, and I let them do most of the bush hogging for me. So I actually have not bush hogged these pastures in 2 years.
How's that feel?
Different.
Yeah.
And one thing we had to get away from was the idea of a perfect pasture being green, no weeds, and this tall. So that was a learning curve, and still getting used to that one.
Do you just mean like from a view standpoint, like it has to look crisp, cream,
Right,
and
with no weeds, traditional, you got to fertilize, you got to spray, you got to do all these inputs that you have to use. Well, that's money out of our pocket. And getting established, we didn't have a whole lot of extra income, so I kind of need them to carry the load of it.
Since you didn't grow up farming, did you see having to put those inputs from your wife's family, or was that just kind of what you were seeing in the industry?
Well, it seemed like there was always something that needed the money on her grandpa's side. He was either fertilizing or feeding or spraying or paying for farm labor, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not above any of that. I just haven't had the capital to do so. So I let the animals do it, and I get out here and I put the sweat equity in.
So you felt more restricted by what you had to put in, not necessarily by wanting to get something out of it.
Initially, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ideally, you know, my numbers that I want to have 100 breeding ewes within the next 2 years. The pigs, I'd like to see in the 40s and 50s.
Why is that?
Just because I want to get it to scale, and I want to be getting profit out of it instead of just having to put everything into it.
Okay, so since you're only in year 3, you're still putting a lot of capital into
That's
it,
right.
even though it's limited to what you have.
That's right, and
Okay.
getting everything established. And right now what I'm working on is building my customer base, and I did not want to build things so rapidly that it got out from under me and I had to shut the whole thing down.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And I think that all too often, people who go into farming as a business model want to scale as fast
Right.
as you can.
And ideally you could, but if you get so big so fast and then the whole thing collapses, then you're down to nothing, and that's a dream lost, and not to mention all the untold hours and everything else.
Yeah. So you said you're building your customer base to build it a little bit slower. How are you doing that? And let's put it out there, there's probably not a big population out here.
There's not, and most people around here are cattle farmers. There's a few sheep farmers, but the biggest thing that I'm after is when they hear Nick Bowman or Redbird Farms, I want them to think quality. I'm not gonna sell an inferior product. If I wouldn't feed it to my family, I'm not giving it to somebody else for theirs. And that's just the code we have to live by and stand by.
Now, if everybody's got cattle, is beef cheap out here?
A lot of people out here raise their own. So that's gonna be I guess you'd call it the turning point, I guess.
Uh-huh.
But there's very few people out here that have hogs. There's
Okay.
even less that have sheep. There's even less than that have broiler chickens.
And you see a market
I do.
for that. People are asking for that.
They are. I have one lady down the road. She got tired of grocery store meats and the way they always looked and smelled. So she came and she bought 30 of our pastured hens from us last spring.
Wow.
I told her I needed several more people just like her.
Uh-huh. Tell her friends, right?
That's right. Yes, ma'am.
So she's obviously able to, but are other people in this community able to afford that quality product?
I have not had anybody yet talk about the price. Now, I'm not trying to get rich off of a single client.
Right.
I got to cover my costs, and ideally I'll make a little bit on top of that, but that goes back to the quality aspect. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
It's worked out really good so far. I hadn't had anybody, like I said, complain about the price of stuff yet.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's good.
So last year we had almost 90 sheep.
Okay.
We sold a bunch down, but we also lost a bunch to parasites.
Oh no.
So that,
Which I hear sheep are really hard for parasites.
until they're like a year old, they try to die.
They just
And
try.
that's no joke. I swear they do.
Oh man. So you don't come from a farming background. How do you handle that more like emotionally that
Well, I mean, there's no other word for it. It sucks.
Yeah.
You know, that's money gone. So originally we were starting off and everybody got wormed religiously. Then they got it again, then again, then again. And it became a vicious cycle to where we couldn't stay ahead of it. So now, from what I've read, no more than 10% of your stock should be wormed to create a resistance to the parasites. And when we get up here, if you'll look, all these sheep, they all have clean bottoms. They're all just as fat as they can be. And what I did was I started culling my mamas that were having a lot of trouble with parasites.
get those genetics out of there?
Get them out of there.
Yeah.
I also got rid of one of my rams that was causing it. And so now, I mean, yeah, we're low numbers right now, but everybody looks amazing.
I think that anybody would want that. I mean, I'd rather have a small herd that's healthy versus
That's
a big
right.
herd that's sick.
And they're all bred. The rams went in October, so that's going to give us March babies.
Triple your herd right there.
That's right. This time next year, we'll be looking at 70 of them.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Now, where do you get your animals processed at?
there is a butcher about 30, 45 minutes down the road. Is one for other people. If it's for us, I just do it myself.
Oh, you do? Nice. Just YouTube is how you figured that out, or?
When I was a kid, I started with deer
Okay.
and hogs that we shoot and everything else, and I just worked my way up. I've read, I can't tell you how many butcher books and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing that, the meat side of it, and I've actually got an egg room up there. I may have to pursue one day at getting it an official butcher shop. So
Oh, an egg room. Is that?
it's an old room up there by the hen house where they used to store eggs.
And you're
So-
thinking about converting that into? I mean, that's something that I think the whole country is still feeling is processing.
It was a big problem during COVID when it started off, because I had folks who were wanting sheep and lambs who were a year out on a butcher date. And that, to me, that was ridiculous.
We were personally scheduling dates for animals that hadn't even been born yet.
I understand.
I
Same
mean,
with the hogs. You know,
it's just scary. Is your ultimate goal to come home full time?
It is.
On the farm?
It is.
Okay. And that's why you want to scale so much.
That's why I want to scale, but I also want it to be sustainable.
You're not just trying to scale to do it.
No.
You want to make sure it's successful.
I want to leave it. What are y'all doing? I want to leave it for my kids when they get ready.
Yeah. And you said your daughter, she really enjoys the sheep. So you think that she'll want to take over one day?
I think so. I told all 4 of them I had a job for each one of them. So
I like that. And they're obviously responding well.
they are. I think there's a lot to be said for kids growing up on a farm. It definitely creates awareness about certain things.
Yeah.
And it just...
You mean awareness as to where their food comes from and the work
that's
that
right.
goes into it?
You know, they don't just think their food comes from a convenience store or whatever else or fast food restaurant, but they actually know where it comes from.
Yeah. Hi. You are a very pretty color. Where does that
one
color
always,
come from?
She always has a single lamb and is always her twin. She ain't sure about you.
No, she's not. I won't get closer. It's okay. I know. So other than the hair sheep not needing to be sheared, what's so special about the hair sheep? I know we talked about it a little bit, but just a little bit deeper. Is it just the lower maintenance? And
that's a big part of it. And from folks that have gotten sheep from me, they love the quality of the meat. As far as the marbling, the taste,
okay,
all of it.
I've never had lamb. Actually, I've tried to have lamb once and I couldn't get past the smell, but does it have like a different smell than regular lamb?
I don't know about that because I'd never had it prior to this.
Okay.
So I can't speak on that. But
That's
what I can say is that if you cook it, back up, if you go buy it from a store and it's pre-seasoned and all that kind of stuff, I don't like it. If you take it and cook it the way we're used to cooking around here, with our spices and that kind of stuff, then it's phenomenal. But I don't care for all the spices that aren't from around here. But like I said, if you cook it like we cook locally, our food here, then it's great.
You like it. It's kind of funny and quite interesting that you started raising an animal for meat that you hadn't even tasted before.
Yep.
What is that all about? Tell me more.
Kind of fell into it. They were smaller, easier to handle, especially with babies coming up. We didn't have to worry about them getting pinned up in the lot with a mad mama cow.
Oh yeah.
They have a good market. Folks like lamb. Some people buy them in bulk. Some just want a single lamb for like 4th of July or something like that. And it was something else that was readily available that we could get our hands on.
So it was more entry to market that got you into
That was the first animals we had was sheep.
That's so interesting.
And then it branched out to the chickens, to the rabbits, to the hogs, all that.
Huh. And you think about chickens being like your gateway drug to farming, and yours is kind of lamb.
Well, now I've had chickens before, just egg layers, and I love taking care of stuff. I'm a nurse by trade at a chemical plant. Not necessarily that correlates, but
yeah,
you know,
I think it does.
I like my hands and stuff. I like taking care of stuff, managing it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, nice. Well, your pastures do look good. I mean, right now, we're in the middle of December, and I know we're in the south, but it's chilly right now.
It is.
And you got green grass coming up, and you're obviously managing it well.
I try very hard. I will say that there was a ton of, what was that weed called? Pigweed. That we had all in these pastures. And the sheep destroyed it.
That's awesome.
A couple years later, after they hit it so hard, it's not even hardly found.
Compaction issues.
Well, and so there
with
was
having cattle ran so long.
Well, and that's the thing, it goes back to continuous grazing. So over here where they fed the hay bales, come up in nothing but briars and brambles and the pigweed and that kind of stuff. I turned those hogs loose on them, and of course you can see what they did.
So that turnover is off from the hogs?
It is, and that's the only place that they've rooted. And to me, the only thing I can think of is because of what was underneath those hay bales.
Yeah.
But they turned all that over, and that's the second pass that they've been in that pasture. And there was significantly less of all that when they came off than before.
There's also probably more like grubs and stuff underneath there because there's probably a lot of organic matter there.
Now I do know that around these oak trees that we've got here, the sheep and the hogs, they go crazy when they start dropping acorns.
Those acorns. How do sheep handle that? Because aren't they toxic?
Not that I found. They'll get under them and they will waylay them. They'll also hit the, what's that called, that hedge? like the boxwood hedge. Some of it's growing over there on that fence line, but as much as they can reach. Now, they don't rear up like goats, but whatever they can reach, it'll be stripped clean down.
So you said you haven't bush hogged in a couple years.
Not in 2 years.
So do you use them for clearing?
I do. Between them and the pigs, running them on the sides of the roads and everything else, then, I mean, they have handled it.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of, since you have a full-time job off farm, it's kind of nice to be able to take your mowing time.
Right. That's right.
And just put the animals on there. You take, what, probably 10 minutes to move your animals?
Sometimes. There's a few of these sheep that are kind of squirrely.
Okay.
They don't like moving. But most of them will come just as soon as I open the gate and holler for them, and the pigs will follow right in.
Yeah.
They, and like I said, over there where the pigs have been, the grass is so much richer and greener than anywhere else in the field. But it's, it works good. Now, like I said about the fences, the worst phone call you can have is, hey, your sheep are out, right? So now we got a cattle gap at the top of the hill up there, but that doesn't stop the sheep. They go right across it. But they, the fences are just an idea for the sheep until they think there's something better on the other side. But those pigs, they won't cross that. Even that poly wire, you can hear it popping. They won't touch it.
So you married into farming.
I did.
You are a nurse by trade, so you like caring for things.
That's right.
And you want to raise your kids in a place that's conducive to their learning.
I do.
Why here? Like, why did you come back to your family land? Why are you raising animals here in such a dramatically different way than this land has ever had?
Just sustainability.
What woke you up to that? What made you
Just
say that this needs to be different?
Just researching. The way things have always been done is no reason to continue doing them that way. And if there's a better way to do things, I'm all ears. And I'm not saying this is the way to do it, but this is definitely shown improvement. You know, and I may learn next week that there's a better way of doing something. I may change it all around. So it's animal health, it's soil health, it's land health, trickles all the way down to people health. I don't like stuff just raised in a lot.
Why?
Well, the quality of life for the animals, like the broiler chickens, I like them out on pasture. Hogs, there was a guy who had a hog parlor down the road, you know, and it stunk to high heavens. And I'm going to ask, have you noticed any smells with the pigs?
No, there's no smell here at all. Just smells like grass.
Yep.
Trees.
Yep. Which is the way it should be. Now, that was one concern my mother-in-law had. She's like, oh, pigs stink so bad. I'm like, I don't think so, not when I'm going to be moving them. So, and they don't. Did
you go tour anybody? Like you said you went to Polyface. Was that before you got into animals?
I just watched every video they had.
There had to be something, right? Like something sparked you that you were like, oh, we can do things different. I'm not just moving on to my wife's family land.
Right.
Do you know what the pinpoint difference was that you were like, this has to be different?
I've heard several people say when they were running cows or whatever, the only time you make money in cows when you get out of it. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why am I going to do something that I don't ever see any benefit out of? And once I started researching it and learning about regenerative agriculture, I've got a good friend in Louisiana who I talk to fairly often. He's all regenerative. He hosts farm days out on his place, everything else. You know, talking to him, researching, and just seeing the benefits of it, of the soil health. You know, my wife thought I was crazy a couple years ago because right down there at the bottom of that hill, I had come down here, I was moving one of the gates, and I saw worms everywhere.
Like earthworms?
Yeah, earthworms. And I run to the house. I was like, we got worms. She's like, okay, and? I'm like, no, we got worms. So it was, you know, it was a learning curve for everybody.
Yeah. How does she feel about it now?
She's a whole lot better with this setup that we're running now as opposed to when I was trying to move them every day. That was getting a little strenuous with 4 kids, 2 off-side jobs, me and her.
So she works off farm too?
She does. She's a teacher. It was doing it a few days at a time has a whole lot better. Now you'll see, I guess you say, a decline in the pastures a little bit from that, but I guess it's kind of a trade-off too, you know.
Yeah.
So
you gotta do what you gotta do.
That's right.
Yeah. And no way is 100% perfect.
No, it's not. Everybody's got to tailor it their own way. Which was, I'm not gonna lie, it hurt my feelings about the Greg Judy thing.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it to work like his so bad, and I was trying. I was putting everything into it. It just hurt my feelings when it didn't work out that way. So, but that's okay. You get over it and you keep moving, and what we have now, the system we're running works.
So you were just hoping to do things just like him.
I was trying my best because of his love for the animals, the grass, the way his is. Now another thing was, you know, I hate to say I kind of got my feelings hurt, but the first year we had sheep, I was doing everything like Greg G. I was moving them. These fence posts are 30 foot apart. I was moving them one set of fence posts every day. And I had no grass in wintertime.
Yeah.
Well, I was like, man, Greg G. don't ever plant anything. He's always got grass. he's also running on like 1,600 to 2,000 acres too.
He's also in a different climate.
He is, and that's a big part of it too.
Yeah.
And now one lady on YouTube, the shepherdess, she is what finally hit home with me, talking about how you have to tailor it to your own operation. There's no, if you take ABC and put it over there, it's not gonna work. You gotta tweak it around. So she actually made that hit home on me when I heard her say that.
Did that feel like, it hurt your feelings, but did it also maybe feel a little bit liberating that you're like, I can do what I think is best, not necessarily listening to a textbook?
And once I accepted that and moved on, I was like, okay, how can I make this work right here? Then yeah, man, it just exploded.
How's your confidence feel on that?
A lot better, a lot better. So I like the low input. Now we use low stress handling techniques with them.
How's that? Like, what do you mean specifically?
What is that woman's name?
Are you talking about Temple Grandin?
That one.
Yeah.
That one. She's all about the animal health, mental health, and stress, that kind of stuff. And so when we started out, the way these pastures are all chained together, I wanted to take them out of this pasture and put them in this pasture, and they would not do it. And it made me mad. And a couple hours later, I finally get them all in here. And then the next time, I want to move them to that one. Well, they wouldn't do it, and it made me mad. And my wife, you know, it takes her sometimes just to say, you're being stupid, here's what you need to do. So she's like, instead of putting them from this pasture to this pasture, she said, why don't you put them from this pasture to that one over there that's a straight line, where they don't have to make a 90-degree bend.
Okay.
I said, it's not gonna work, but okay, I'll try it. So I opened it up, and every one of them went over there.
So for reference, in this video, you've got tight lines.
I do.
So it's not like they're going from this long rectangular side straight to that way.
Right.
They're going from here to here.
That's right.
And they can't go very far that way.
And when we started it, the old chicken house was the center hub, because that's where I was gonna have lambing sheds and a little corral for them and all that. So that's why everything was tied in to there. I know it looks awful right now.
Use what you have.
That's right. Do what you can with what you got.
Exactly.
So, but once my wife made that correlation for me, she made it click. Man, open that gate and holler at them, and there they go. Nothing to it. I'm like,
she's not even out here every day, and she knows what to do.
That's right.
But that's also why sometimes you just need like a soundboard.
That's
you know,
right.
Like you're a business partner, somebody to bounce ideas off of and figure it out together.
Well, and I'll sit there and I'll overcomplicate stuff. All the time. All the time.
Because you have the reasoning behind it versus
I'm like, no, I want them to do this because of this. But they don't want to do that. They want to go over there.
What an interesting extra hurdle to get through, especially not coming from a farming background.
And see, I was green to all of it.
Yeah.
And I'm still green. I'm still learning. But I've got my feet under me now, and I'm taking what I know and I'm building on top of it.
Are you getting that instinctual idea?
Starting to. I'm getting to where I can pick up by the look on some of their faces, as weird as that sounds, which way they're going to go and get ahead of them.
Yeah.
Now, those sheep were terrible last year. Terrible about jumping a fence. And it would get next to me.
Is that why you have one over there?
That's exactly why there's one over there.
Okay.
That's exactly why. All of them's over here except that one. But they were terrible, and it was always the same mama that I saw lead them all out. That just clicked with me one day. And so got rid of that mama, and almost all of them stay where they're supposed to.
We call them the boss, which I grew up on cattle, so we call them the boss cow.
That's right.
And you want your boss cow to listen to you.
That's right.
Not to themselves.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But once she took 6 of them out of the fence with her last year. And so I went ahead and handled that one. She went to the freezer.
Yeah.
Those 6 that she pulled out broke back into the fence, and there they stayed. They're like, oh, you meant don't do that.
Oh, I understand now. Okay. I will listen to you.
That's right. At least until it's my idea to change again. But so the sheep are great mamas. And now one thing about them is I don't ever like triplets. Some people, I've got one mama that can raise triplets. The rest of them, there's always at least one orphan.
Is that because of teat placement? Because sheep only have 2 teats. Yeah.
That's right. Which you build your numbers quicker with 3, but I don't want bottle babies. Especially when I got to be at work at 5 o'clock in the morning, I really don't want bottle babies. So I started culling those mamas.
Yeah.
They're good mamas for somebody who can take care of that extra one. But so
that's a really good point, because you do think in production so easily when it comes to farming that you want to grow big, faster,
and I had
harder.
I had to get off the mindset of grow, numbers. Let's master what we have first, and then tick it up.
Steady growth. A steady growth, not a
That's
jump.
right. That's exactly right.
So now you're not getting triplets.
I've got one mama that lays triplets, but
you said
she
she
raises
does.
them.
She
She
does a good
raises
job.
them. So I hadn't had to pull one off of her yet.
She's got good milk production. Nice.
And when they have those babies, their bags will be that full.
Oh my gosh.
But
And their tiny little legs.
that's right. That's right.
Wow.
But they that's one reason why I started doing the controlled breeding, was because I got tired of them having babies in the worst weather in December. It was always around Christmas time. It was always cold. It was always raining, and it was always when I was at work.
Always.
And so we lost a lot of babies that way.
Yeah.
So I said, I can fix this. So I broke my rams out. I kept them off until October. They come back in October 1, which gives me March babies. It's
Okay.
a lot more temperate for the weather. The grass is greening back up. No issues.
Yep.
Only catch is they don't grow, for whatever reason, quite as fast as a fall lamb. I'm not sure why.
Really?
Even with all the extra grass.
Huh. Maybe because the grass is so rich, it just kind of
Maybe.
goes through them.
Maybe so. I don't
It's
know.
not that
That-
hardy fiber.
That black and white one is one of my lambs off of that Katahdin from this year. That's how big she is, and she's due to have her first sit in March.
And she doesn't even look that big though.
She will when she turns sideways.
Because I see the one walking away now, and she
That's
looks
right.
bigger.
But that other ram was not putting the size on him
Yeah.
at all. So
Okay.
I got him, and he's showing out.
That's awesome. Look, that one's trying to come back in.
He'll figure it out.
Like, wait a minute, guys. Wait for me. This isn't as fun anymore.
It's like they can figure out how to get over there but not get back.
Uh-huh. You got an ear tag down there, too.
Yeah, that one we were looking at, that black one, I've gone through so many tags on them. So what I'm going to
She doesn't
start
like 'em?
doing, none of them do. And I don't know how
Oh.
they snatch them out, because it ain't like they can reach up and grab it. But
Oh, you'd be surprised. They'll go on a fence post.
that must be what they're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do the neck collars
Oh, okay.
with all the tags on them.
Yeah.
That way I can keep better records of which mamas are doing what.
Yeah. You can ear tag or tattoo them, too.
Yeah, I was thinking the collars with just that little tag hanging there. That way, if I don't want to come through the field and spook the mama that's just had babies, I can sit there with my binoculars and see who she was and write all that down. I try to keep close records,
You do. What do you keep track of?
just because I want the animals that perform the best to keep doing it, and if they're not producing, I want them to go.
So what numbers are you tracking? Just who they have, how many they
What
have?
they have, how they do it, if they had any issues with it, if that mama's been wormed before or how many times, just any data I can catch on them.
Do you think that's your nursing background on why
Maybe.
you want that? Write it down.
That's right.
Yeah.
Keep track of it.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of research that says, looking at that mama who has those babies, though, she's the better mama. But when you put pen to paper, you may find out that no, she's actually not. That one actually needs to go, and that one over there is the better mama.
That's a good point. The ones that you kind of have a emotional thought to.
And,
be different
Now,
than
that's one
physical.
thing I've told my babies. I said, don't name them.
Oh, okay.
Don't name them.
Not even the mamas. So you don't have
Everything's expendable.
a favorite out here.
Nope.
They're just production.
They all have a job.
That's a good way to look at it.
This sounds cold, but it's either making money or costing money. And if it's costing money, it needs to live somewhere else.
That's the harsh truth of farming,
It is.
though.
It really is. But I can flip that switch cold. It doesn't bother me a bit.
Do you think that because you don't have a farming background, you came into farming on your own, that not getting emotionally attached to your animals is harder or easier for you?
Probably easier for me.
Why do you think that?
Well, kind of like we were just talking about, if that mama's been here for 6 years and always had a pretty cow, and then suddenly she's got a bad year or whatever, then, on paper, I'm just calling by the numbers. If it's one that I've grown attached to, then you're going to have to sort that out too.
And like you said, we've got a job to do.
Everything's got a job.
And your ultimate goal is to be here full time.
That's right.
So you need it
They've
to
all
do
got
that.
jobs. I've got a job. My job is to take care of them and to give them the opportunity to produce as much as they can.
How do you manage the meat side of it? We've talked a little bit about marketing, word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like storage freezers?
So that's becoming an increasing problem.
Okay.
So what I'm having to do is just schedule everything. If I know that I've got these numbers, X, Y, and Z going out, my fancy dog collar hats.
Yeah.
If I've got a bunch of stuff that is going to be coming up, then I just have to plan accordingly and schedule it around.
For your meat.
And as
Okay.
soon as I get it back and get it done, get on the phone with whoever got it, say, hey, y'all come get it.
So you do wholes and halves only.
I do. I'm starting meat boxes this year.
How are you doing that?
I'm going to take them to the butcher and just do all the cuts and then sell them from there.
Why? Why are you making that change?
Because a lot of people don't have storage for a whole or a half, and that's just broadening that customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you have a really cool thing here. Just your knowledge base, how you've taught yourself, being able to just roll with things that come to you.
That's right.
and not being stuck in your way of doing it this way because so-and-so said to do it. Those are hard lessons to learn for anybody, let alone somebody going into a brand new industry. So I just think what you're doing here is really, really cool. I can't wait to see like how your herd grows and how your customer base grows. But where do you see the farm going from here?
So I see it just continuing to grow to where my kids can step in it and run it. And ideally, all of them have full-time jobs on here.
So you're kind of building this so that they have something to do
fall
too.
back on.
What if they don't want to?
That's fine.
Yeah.
We'll shut it down.
Kind of nice how the family farm sometimes is run because that's my expectation.
Right.
That's the expectation of me. But when you run it like a business, it can always be shut down and started up again.
And the other part of that is because I would like all of our babies to come back here and put their houses here.
Your kids'
Yeah.
babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, if this is here then established, then that's just an extra incentive for them to do so.
Kind of make it easier for them to do it if
Just
they
go
so
home.
choose. If there's anybody in the area and they're looking for some high quality lamb, where do they get it? How do they get a hold of you?
They can find us on Facebook at Redbird Farms. And if it's somebody around the area, I'm sure they're familiar with at least somebody in Chatham who will point them in the right direction.
Okay, very cool. So we'll put all those links in the description below. And just a fun question I like to ask is if there's anybody watching this and they're like finding that maybe they're kind of stuck in their ways a little bit like you were, what would be your advice to them to just try something new, try something different? How would you advise them to do that?
You got to find something you're interested in. Number one, learn about it, try to master that, and you just got to dig in. You got to be hard-headed sometimes.
Hard-headed in what way?
Well, same thing as going from continuous grazed to rotationally grazed. You just got to find what works and go with it. And stuff gets hard, especially on a farm. You lose animals, you know, grass don't come up like it should. You just got to roll with it. Keep it going if it's something you want to do.
It's not like every day sunshine and roses.
Mm-mm.
Some days are hard.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you, Nick. I
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate it. Thanks for letting me hang out around here, talk to you a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
And who knows, maybe here in the future we can come see how big your operations
That's right.
come and
See how it's growing.
what difference you've got going on. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.